We're ready? Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order at 9 a.m. Is it echoing? Okay. All right. Okay. Councillor Stone, would you mind reading the land acknowledgement, please?
I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we were on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty Number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred spaces, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Stone. All right. I have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. It is recommended that the General Committee meeting agenda dated Wednesday, December 11th, 2024 be adopted as printed and circulated. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, that's carried and my pen doesn't work. All right. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. We can move right along to our invited presentation from Elam Gurawi and David Clark and Bill Van Ryn from Tatum Engineering Limited to talk about the corporate GHG inventory and regional climate change mitigation plan. And they're joining us through Zoom.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can see you.
Uh,
Hopefully we can hear you.
can you hear me
Yes.
properly?
Yes,
Good.
we can. Perfect.
So,
Welcome.
Thank you. We have a presentation, PowerPoint presentation. Are you going to share it, or we have to share our screen?
We can share it if you'd like us to do that. Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Elham Guruhi, and I am the Manager of Decarbonization and Net Zero with Tatum Engineering. With me in this call is David Clark, the Vice President of Building Engineering Services. We are here to present the Regional Climate Change Mitigation Plan prepared by Tatum Engineering for the 6 Muskoka area municipalities. This presentation specifically talks about the general purpose of the plan with details of the Huntsville plan. Next, please. The milestone of the climate change actions in Muskoka are listed here. It started in 2020 by Climate Emergency Declaration. Since then, Muskoka municipalities took many climate-related actions. In fall of 2023, Tatum was retained to start preparing the Regional Climate Change Mitigation Plan. A regional working group comprising of members from each area municipality was established. Tatum and the regional working group worked closely together throughout the project to finalize the plan, and now we are presenting the plan. Next, please. There are a number of different initiatives, plans, and technical documents completed by federal and provincial governments, which we carefully reviewed them, and the appropriate and relevant initiatives were considered in preparing this plan. We have listed some of them here. Next, please. The plan is completed based on the framework provided in the PCP protocol, Partners for Climate Protection, and Huntsville and other area municipalities can get recognition from PCP for completion of the milestones 1, 2, 3. Next, please. Therefore, our scope of work completely aligns with the PCP milestones 1, 2, 3, where task 1 is the GHG inventory and forecasting. Task 2 was to determine the GHG reduction targets, and task 3 was to prepare the regional climate change mitigation plan. Next, please. The purpose of this plan is to prepare the GHG inventory for the baseline year so municipalities can understand the GHG emission profile within their assets and to provide a guidance to area municipalities in their decision-making process by setting ambitious and achievable GHG reduction targets and providing clear, simple, and effective action plans based on available technologies in the market. This is also a regional plan to make sure all area municipalities are taking similar steps and actions. Therefore, when Huntsville gets to implement each project, they may require to complete additional studies like engineering or energy studies or complete life cycle cost assessments. Additionally, as the existing technologies advance and the new technologies become commercially available, Huntsville can consider the impacts of the new technologies on accelerating the plan or recommending new projects. Next, please. Our first task was GHG inventory and forecasting. Next. 2018 was considered as a baseline year because it was the most recent year with the full information that was not affected by pandemic. GHG emission inventory was completed based on framework milestone 1 provided in the PCP protocol for all corporate assets using Environment and Climate Change Canada and US EPA emission factors. The global warming potential used in this assessment are based on IPCC fifth assessment report. Emissions are reported in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and all corporate assets, including buildings, fleet, streetlights, and traffic lights, are included in this report. Next, please. In this pie chart, we show the energy makeup of Huntsville operations for 2018 baseline, leading with natural gas, followed by electricity, diesel, gasoline, and propane. It includes energy used for buildings, fleet, and streetlights. Next, please. This chart showcases the GHG emission profile for Huntsville in 2018 based on asset type. Buildings accounted for 62% of the emissions, while fleet accounted for 37%, and streetlights contribution was 1%. Next, please. Here we show the GHG emission for buildings by operation type. Recreation centers are generating the highest GHG emissions, followed by admin offices. This is typical, and we're not seeing any unusual results. Most of the GHG emissions in building sector are coming from building heating, cooling by natural gas or other fuels. Next, please. To help us identify buildings that are potentially less energy efficient, we prepared the GHG emission intensity for buildings, which is defined by GHG emission in tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per square meter of the building area per year. Aspen Community Center and Library Annex has a significantly higher GHG intensity for 2018. Many factors can affect the GHG intensity, including the operation type, fuel type, behavioral patterns, and also efficiency of the building assemblies. Next, please. We also completed the GHG emission forecasting for business as usual scenario to year 2050 based on the framework milestone 1 provided in the PCP protocol. To project the future GHG emissions, we have modeled emission increases using population growth and urbanization patterns based on the census data and District of Muskoka's Phase 1 Growth Update report. The ECC report was also used to project the effect of the climate change and global warming on building energy use. For business as usual forecasting, we assume that the operating patterns will remain the same as the baseline year with no actions to reduce the energy consumption or GHG emissions. The cost of the energy, including the cost of carbon, is also forecasted to year 2050. Next, please. Here we can see forecasting results. The GHG emission is projected to increase differently for different corporate assets, but in total, the estimated Huntsville GHG emissions is estimated to increase by 13% above the baseline year by 2030 and an increase of 30% by 2050. The energy costs also forecasted, which includes changes in energy costs due to inflation and carbon cost increase. It is estimated that Huntsville's energy costs will increase by 151% by 2050 under business as usual scenario. Next, please. The second task to determine the GHG reduction targets. Next. We completed a detailed review of the existing reports and plans for Huntsville, as well as the provincial and federal plans and targets. The Made in Ontario Environmental Plan is Ontario's reduction plan, sets a GHG reduction of 30% below 2005 level by 2030. The federal plan sets a GHG reduction of 40 to 45% below 2005 level by 2030. We also considered the emission profile of the Huntsville to make sure the targets we are setting are feasible. By feasible, we mean technologically and economically feasible based on the commercially available technologies. It is also worth mentioning that to be economically feasible, it is also very important to reduce emissions gradually, and that's how we set our mitigation plan in the next few steps. Next, please. Therefore, Huntsville's GHG reduction target is set to 45% reduction below baseline by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050. The 45% aligns with the higher target from the federal plan. Next, please. And the final task was to complete the regional climate change mitigation plan. Next. To achieve the targets we set in the previous step, our plan is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is to decarbonize the existing corporate assets through building, fleet, and streetlight retrofits. The second pillar is to offset the remaining emissions using renewable energy generation through rooftop solar photovoltaic panels or additional solar PVs on corporate assets or within the community, or alternatively clean electricity purchase agreements. And the final pillar is to have a net zero policy for new buildings and new fleet to make sure our efforts in decarbonizing the existing corporate assets will continue to get Huntsville to net zero by 2050. With considering these 3 pillars, we determined what it takes for Huntsville to reach the targets and to decarbonize their existing assets. Therefore, we determined the specific plans for buildings, fleet, and streetlights. Next, please. To determine the mitigation plan for buildings, we completed a feasibility assessment of the available technologies and only consider retrofits that their potential GHG reduction compared to their costs are high. The GHG mitigation plan for Huntsville building consisted of the following recommended retrofits. Replacement of main heating, existing heating cooling equipment to air source heat pumps when they reach their end of life. Installation of rooftop solar PVs on corporate buildings, and replacement of all non-LED lightings to LED lightings. Additionally, solar PVs are also recommended to be additionally installed to offset the remaining building emissions. We have completed a high-level sizing of the proposed retrofits to determine the possible GHG reductions. With implementing these recommendations, Huntsville's GHG emissions for buildings can be reduced 58% from 2018 level by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050. Next, please. The implementation plan for buildings was determined based on the remaining life of the existing systems and the energy use index of the building equipment, meaning that we prioritize buildings with lower energy efficiency. It is also assumed that all buildings will consider the retrofit. Municipalities has this flexibility to decide to decommission some older buildings and replace them with net zero new buildings. It is also assumed that any future plans for expansion or new building constructions will consider net zero GHG design. Therefore, new additions will not affect the future GHG emissions. Next, please. We also determined the installation cost of equipment for building, fleet, and streetlights, as well as the cost of energy and carbon savings for buildings. The estimated costs are obtained from our suppliers with some contingency added for installation. Therefore, it's not a full construction cost and does not include any costs associated to building upgrades that may be needed to implement the measures. I also want to mention that once technologies advance, the cost will also reduce over time. And in our cost assessment, we also didn't consider any funding opportunities that may be available for municipalities to use. Next, please. A snapshot of the proposed retrofit implementation timeline and cost is provided here with details in the report. By 2030, Huntsville needs to invest around $8.3 million to complete the recommended retrofits to air source heat pumps, LEDs, and rooftop solar photovoltaics for 5 buildings. By 2050, additional buildings will go through the retrofit, and to offset the remaining emissions by installing additional solar PVs, the estimated investment needed is $34 million. Next, please. The recommended measures for fleet is based on federal and provincial plans to make zero-emission vehicles and EVs available for Canadians. Therefore, we recommended to replace all light and medium-duty vehicles and 35% of heavy-duty vehicles to ZEVs by 2030. By 2050, it is recommended that Huntsville convert all fleet to zero-emission vehicles. The recommendations also included adding some EV charging infrastructure to support the 2030 EV transition plan. It is assumed that after 2030, public charging stations will be readily available and Huntsville won't require to install more. With this plan, Huntsville can reduce 38% of fleet GHG emissions by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050. Next, please. To implement this plan, Huntsville will require to replace 20 vehicles and install 10 EV charging stations by 2030 with an estimated cost of $3.8 million. It is recommended that a separate fleet study be prepared based on the recent inventory and age of the fleet. By 2050, Huntsville will replace all fleet to zero-emission vehicles with an estimated cost of $4.3 million. Next, please. Our general recommendation for street lights is to convert all non-LED lights to LED lights when they reach their end of life. It is understood that the majority of the town lights have been converted by now. And also an LED conversion plan for non-LED street lights can help to identify the inventory and determine like a GHG mitigation plan for them. Next, please. To compare the energy costs of the net zero plan to business as usual, we have prepared this chart for buildings. This chart highlights the financial impact of energy cost savings over time, spanning from 2018 to 2050. The dark green area represents the energy cost savings achieved each year with the net zero plan compared to business as usual plan. The graph effectively highlights the financial benefits of implementing retrofitting measures to achieve net zero by 2050. Next slide. And as a summary, 62% of Huntsville's emissions are coming from buildings, 37% coming from fleet, and 1% coming from streetlights. This is for 2018 baseline. The GHG reduction targets were set for short and long term. The short-term 2030 target is to achieve 45% reduction below baseline, and the long term is to achieve net zero by 2050. By implementing the recommendations in this plan, Huntsville can reduce 58% of GHG emissions from buildings and 38% from their fleet by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of information and a lot of numbers that I'm sure are causing a little consternation around the table. But it's the reality, and we appreciate all of the work that went into that. Committee, are there questions for our presenters around this ambitious plan? One thing I do have a quick question. You made reference to the street lights, and it was still sort of identified as something we could do, and yet we pretty much have converted the majority of our street lights to LED. So I'm assuming that that's almost a checkbox for us. Is that's how I interpret that?
That's correct. I assume that almost all of them, but probably some lights still remaining. Like you can
That
just complete those and check mark that this task was completed. Yeah.
Right, okay. And earlier in your presentation, you made reference to federal and provincial grants, mostly federal grants. But I didn't see that in your calculated costs unless it was hidden somewhere in there. And what sorts of grants are available to municipalities?
We didn't include the grants in our calculated costs. The costs are basically, we are assuming that this is the whole cost, and once you get the grants, you will be able to reduce the cost. There are a lot of grants right now available through Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, and also there are some federal fundings, provincial fundings available for recreational centers and arenas. And these fundings are changing constantly. So when the projects are being installed, application for the fundings can be happen like before the project implementation to make sure that the fundings are going to be used.
Thank you for that. And when you refer to the recreational program grants, I'm assuming that they are specifically targeted to energy efficiency, not the standard municipal recreation grants.
Some of them are, yes, they're all energy specific. The ones for Green Municipal Fund from FCM,
Right.
but there are some funds that are towards accessibility that also consider, like if you increase accessibility in your facilities and also increase the energy efficiency, those funds can be used. So there are different funds available, but mostly energy related.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. I don't see any other questions at this time. So again, thank you for your presentation, and we do have a motion later on in our meeting dealing with this. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving right along, we are now moving to deputations, and we do indeed have two, starting with Amy Jones from the YWCA Muskoka. I guess on behalf of Hannah Lynn. Welcome, Amy. And here to provide an update on all of the YW activities here in Huntsville, which have been fantastic. So over to you.
Thank you so much. And Hannah sends her regrets. She has an awful case of laryngitis. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Mayor Nancy Alcock and esteemed councilors. My name is Amy Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Youth Services from YWCA Muskoka. Thank you for having us. Last November, the town of Huntsville included YWCA Muskoka in your 2024 budget. You provided our charity with $8,000 in funding for youth programs. We are here to tell you about how that important funding was and the impact it had on the community. We'd also like to tell you what's next for YWCA Muskoka and how council can support our work. YWCA Muskoka is a community-based charitable organization formed 30 years ago here for Muskoka's women and girls, youth, and those most marginalized. We reach over 1,200 community members across the district each year. YWCA Muskoka is one of 29 YWCAs across Canada, vocal and active as a more rural member of YWCA Canada and part of the World YWCA movement. In Canada, YWCA is the largest provider of shelter and employment services for women. What sets our local YWCA apart is a focus on community and prevention. We provide educational programs and skill-building workshops to prevent gender-based violence, build economic resilience, promote mental health and well-being, and create connections. We've built a reputation as an open door for community information and are supporting more people, from newcomers to those who are houseless, navigating the systems in our region and helping them access important resources such as Circles Muskoka and the Nest Fund for women leaving intimate partner violence. I first wanted to take a chance to share with you all a little bit about the youth programs we offer for those that are unfamiliar with them. For 30 years, YWCA Muskoka has delivered self-esteem and confidence-building programs for girls in grades 5 to 8 across Muskoka. Known now as Girls Unplugged, it is one of the longest-running girls-centered programs running in Canada. It was developed right here in Muskoka by YWCA staff. All of our elementary programs are 12 weeks long for grades 5, 6, or 7, 8. Our topics include healthy relationships, authenticity, power of voice, boundaries, technology safety, body image, and emotional regulation. Girls' Choice is similar for girls in grades 9 and 10 and is 10 weeks long. It allows the youth to lead the topics and ask questions prior to each session they may want to explore further. We also have summer day camps that run across Muskoka each summer for girls aged 9 to 14. Boys Quest is for boys grades 5, 6, or 7, 8. We focus on topics such as gender stereotypes, navigating difficult emotions, coping with stress, individuality, and healthy relationships. We also recently did a 6-week quest for grade 9 boys in Gravenhurst. One of our newer programs is Youth Co-Unite. We created this program out of the pandemic for all genders and for 2S LGBTQ youth and allies, including topics such as healthy relationships, family dynamics, dealing with stress, and gender expression. And so we'd love to share how youth programs have looked over the past year in Huntsville. Last year, the 2023-2024 school year, we were able to reach 5 of the 6 elementary schools with either Quest or Girls Unplugged, reaching a total of 44 students. The $8,000 from Huntsville Council helped specifically fund 2 of the 3 schools we had programs at in the winter and spring of this year. This reached 16 students, with 8 in Girls Unplugged at Spruce Glen and 8 in Quest at VK Greer. This 2024-2025 school year, we will also reach 5 out of 6 of the elementary schools, and we are currently running Girls Unplugged at Riverside for 12 girls. We are also part of the ministry-funded pilot of Coaching Boys into Men to train high school coaches in a gender-based violence prevention program. We recently trained 2 Huntsville High teachers to implement the program in boys soccer and hockey. This February, we will launch Girls Unplugged at St. Mary's and VK Greer, and Quest at Spruce Glen, and either Girls Unplugged or Quest at HPS. We also aim to launch a program at HHS as well. Here we have an overview of the reach of our programs across the elementary schools over the past 3 years in Huntsville. As you can see, we're due for a program at HPS this winter, and next year we will offer Quest at Riverside. So this also includes this winter in those slides. All right, so let's zoom in on the impact of the town's 2 programs from the winter. We were able to reach 16 students with this funding. We track how many of our sessions address either gender-based violence prevention through curriculum with topics like boundaries, healthy relationships, online safety, gender stereotypes, and we also track how many sessions address mental health and well-being with topics like stress management, self-talk, identifying emotions, and body image. As you can see, both groups address gender-based violence prevention in some way in 11 out of the 12 sessions, and 9 to 10 of the sessions address mental health and well-being in some way. With body image, I've included some feedback from the facilitator where she shared that many of the girls in the group were having a hard time believing they're beautiful. Through an activity that asked them to stand under a sign that says either average or beautiful, all students felt most comfortable standing under the average sign, and they practiced moving under the beautiful sign. In Quest, when discussing emotions, it was shared in the group that the boys opened up about how it is a struggle to control anger as an emotion, and that they don't know how to cope with feelings of sadness. In what has become a favorite activity across all of our programs, the students look at an emotion wheel which describes how emotions feel in our body and the importance of allowing them to move through our bodies. They do a mindfulness painting activity where they paint a series of jars labeled with different emotions, and how those emotions feel to them is painted on the inside. Having awareness of our emotions can help us talk about feelings more clearly, avoid or resolve conflicts better, and move past difficult feelings more easily. Here is a breakdown of how the $8,000 was spent on 2 programs. This included our facilitators' wages. Often our facilitators are small business owners or post-secondary students supplementing their incomes. This also covers a portion of my salary to liaise and coordinate with schools, as well as supervise the facilitators. We spend a modest amount each week on supplies and food. Oftentimes, our snacks create the buy-in for students. This also covers mileage for facilitators who travel all across Muskoka to deliver programs, and a modest administrative fee that helps keep our doors open. We fundraise for all of our youth programs and offer as many as we can in each school year. We currently have no provincial or foundation grant funding for our youth programs. This slide provides a really interesting overview of how funding for our youth programs have looked over the past fiscal year in each town. Often service clubs and community groups like Rotary and Lions make an incredible impact on the number of programs we're able to offer. And as you can see from this slide, the funding from the town of Huntsville was incredibly impactful in what we were able to do this past year in Huntsville. And just as a side note, this doesn't include any of our funding that is for all youth programs. It's just anything that was earmarked for a specific town. Before we wrap it up, I want to tell you about 2 initiatives you can support as we move into 2025. The first is our annual year-end appeal campaign. The demand for YWCA Muskoka services continues to grow, and our local charity strives to be as resilient and resourceful as the people we serve. Our goal is to fundraise $25,000 by the new year to reach more people across Muskoka in 2025. Donations fuel people with ideas and energy for our mission to make a difference in our communities, and every donation counts. I'd also like to personally invite the council to attend YWCA Muskoka's 19th Women of Distinction Awards Gala on International Women's Day, Saturday, March 8th at Hidden Valley Resort. It's going to be a fabulous party and the first time we've held the gala since before the pandemic. We are receiving nominations now for the awards until mid-January with 6 categories: Young Women of Distinction under 30, Arts, Culture, and Creativity, Health, Sports, and Wellness, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Transforming Community, and Lifetime Achievement. We have also invited the Muskoka Lakes Chamber of Commerce to come present their first sponsored Muskoka Women in Trades Award the same night, and we have the very great honor of presenting 2 of the King Charles III coronation medals to 2 very special women from Muskoka. This is an event you won't want to miss. Tables of 10 are available for purchase, and we would love to see the town of Huntsville there as a sponsor or guests to celebrate and recognize the accomplishments of outstanding women in Muskoka. Thank you for your consideration and for having us today. I look forward to our continued relationship.
Thank you for a great presentation, Amy. It's so exciting to actually see the money that we contribute and what it goes to. It's unbelievable program. So thank you for that presentation. Committee, are there questions for? Yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. And I echo what you've just said, that considering the small amount of money that you receive, that the YWCA gets, it's incredible the amount of things that you do. And it's really so timely right now, too, with the amount of mental health issues that we have, and addiction, and just body image, all those things. And I applaud the work that the YWCA has been doing, and thank you for coming and giving us an update.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any. Oh, yes, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship, and thanks for coming and thanks for the presentation. I'm curious, which service clubs are your greatest benefactors in Bracebridge? And how do we get them on board?
So it also includes community groups, and we are so fortunate that there is a Silver Slicers golf tournament in Bracebridge every summer, and for the last 3 summers, we've been one of the beneficiaries of that. So they provide funding for subsidies for our camps, which serves all of Muskoka, and then they also have sponsored 2 of our Girls' Choice programs the last couple of years. So it's made a big difference, as you can see in the impact in Bracebridge.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question. That was because that was such an obvious thing that jumped off the chart. All right, I don't see any other questions. Amy, thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, moving on to our second deputation, we have Dan Watson here from the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. Also to provide an update on the great work of the festival in our community. Perfect. Welcome, Dan.
You do that. That's what I do. There you go. Thank you very much for offering the opportunity for me to come here and share what about the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. You're going to be, there's a staff report coming up and in speaking about the long-term arrangement with the town of Huntsville, the Algonquin Theatre and the Huntsville Festival of the Arts. And in talking with staff, we thought it might be a great opportunity for me to come and just talk a little bit about what Huntsville Festival of the Arts does, and because I think we're due for giving you guys an update. So my presentation is something that we presented at the annual general meeting, which was back in November. There's a lot of information here. I'm not going to be able to get through all of it, I don't think, but I thought I would share it with you because just for your knowledge and so that you have an idea of what we've been doing. So starting off, this is our overview for this 2023-24 year. So that our year runs from September 1st to August 31st. So that's the context what we're talking about. We're very proud of the opportunity of the amount of programming that we've been able to accomplish in that time. This marks the second year that the Huntsville Festival of the Arts has had a budget of over $1 million, which is really fantastic. Now, I should say that although that means it's over $1 million, it doesn't mean that there's greater profit. I just want to make that clear. We're a not-for-profit charitable organization. What it does mean is that our programming has expanded and we're offering so much more. And I think a big part of that is our shoulder season programming, which before COVID, we were doing mostly summertime, and our budget ran in anywhere between $500,000 to $700,000. So there's been an incredible growth since that time. And it has a lot to do with the shoulder season. Our audience, you get a sense of the audience, the demographics, the kind of people that come to our shows and attend our events. I want to point out the economic impact. So the $4.49 million in tourist spending based on our numbers, and we do that through. I'm sure you've seen this calculation before, is through a provincial portal. And I also we do a lot of surveys. We send them out after every show. And so we get a sense of, in particular, what people do, where they're coming from, where they're staying, are they going out to restaurants? And on average, we have 22% of the folks that come to our events stay in local accommodations, and 59% visit local restaurants, so they're big eaters. So if I do some calculations, like that leads to over in the year over approximately 3,500 nights of accommodation if people are doubling up, and over 19,000 visitors to local restaurants, which is, if you do the math, it's an incredible economic benefits to the local community. We get an full audited statements each year through Pahapahill, as does the town. And so you can see that this past year we ended with a surplus of over $7,000. But you could also see in the previous year it was a deficit of $4,000. So that's pretty standard for a lot of not-for-profits. We work very hard, and we try to balance our budgets, as do all of you. So this is kind of how it rolls. But you can see again, although the budgets are bigger, the profits are not necessarily so. This is something we're very proud about, the commitment to artists. So if you look at our budget, over 50%, approximately 50% goes towards artist fees. That's by far our biggest expense. And so we work to support artists, and we work to pay artists. And you can see this is it connects up with some of the shared goals of the Algonquin Theatre and the town of Huntsville that you'll see in the report, with creative opportunities to help build financial stability for local artistic expression and creativity. And you could see it's not just visiting artists, that local artists, we've 277. So we really are a big tent for artists, and we really work towards supporting them and helping them in their careers. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Many of you probably know a lot about this, but we've been in existence since 1993, and it's always been because of sponsors. Some of these sponsors here have been on board for 20 plus years. The BIA has been there from the beginning, and we have newer sponsors that are coming on, and we really couldn't do the work that we do without all of them. So thank you. And this is something that's maybe newer, but we have a membership program. If you've been to any of our shows, you hear me talk about this maybe a lot. But it's a fantastic program that's seen a lot of growth over the past couple of years. And so it's individuals that are buying annual memberships. So it gets some perks like advanced access on tickets and discounts. But it also, I think a big plus is people want to support local arts and culture. And so they do that through our membership program. And as you probably know, as a not-for-profit, we're run by a volunteer board. These are the folks that were on the board in 2023-24. I'm very fortunate to be able to work with them, and I'm very fortunate to work with folks like Hannah Naiman, who is our Director of Programming, Education and Engagement, and we also have all kinds of different contracted staff, including some summer students who were we had 4 fantastic summer students this year, who all are going to study the arts. So it was great, and I hope they come back. I'll try to get them back. So we're very ingrained in the community. As you know, we work on a lot of different programs and collaborations with different organizations in the community. I did want to highlight that for the past 2 years, we've been contributing $2,500 to the town's National Indigenous Peoples Day event, and have been helping to organize that event with staff time and resources. And it's a fantastic thing that we will continue collaborating with the town about. Deerhurst Resort is something that we've been a collaboration that we've had more so the past couple of years since COVID. We do a lot of shows there in the off season, in the shoulder season, when it makes the most sense, because in the summer they're at kind of full capacity. A question that I just want to say is, a lot of people ask why Deerhurst and not Algonquin Theatre. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is it's a question of capacity. The Deerhurst Resort, they have the room holds 895 seated. So that's double what the Algonquin Theatre does. So for a higher profile, more expensive artist, it becomes more affordable. If we did it at the Algonquin Theatre, the tickets would be quite high, and people might not be able to afford it, or might not be willing to pay. But and the other thing I would say is that we always try to pair up what the type of show is with the experience. So the Deerhurst is very much people like to get up and dance and move around, versus the Algonquin Theatre, where it might be more you're sitting and listening and enjoying it that way. So there's that. I get that question a lot, so I thought I would just put it out there. And now the big thing I want to talk about, the Algonquin Theatre. So this is, what we consider, the Algonquin Theatre, we consider our home. We've been working there for the past 19 years, almost 20. And we've had a long-term agreement with the town for use of that. You can see on this slide that when we do our surveys, we have 87% of our audience rate the Algonquin Theatre as their preferred venue. So people love it, and we love being there, and we're thankful to all the staff and the production team, and Matt Huddlestone is here as well. We have a great working relationship with all of them. You'll see in that report that half of the rentals that happen at Algonquin Theatre are through us, and I'm not sure that they can talk to it, but that also includes the programming, the youth programming that we do, camps, classes. We also do rehearsals there for our musical. So we're using the Algonquin Theatre a lot. And one of the things I would say is that increased activity also benefits your other renters, because the more eyeballs, the more people that are moving through, the more they discover the other shows as well. And Matt knows that oftentimes people kind of confuse whether what show is what, right? Is a Huntsville Fest of the Art Show. That's totally, if they're good, we like to take credit, but if they're bad, no, I'm joking. But what it means is that we're working together we all have a common goal, which is to get audiences in there and to offer opportunities for people to experience art and culture and to be there. So I knew I wasn't going to get through all this, and I can see the countdown as it's 20 seconds. So all that to say is you're going to hear a report coming up, and you can feel free to, if you want to ask other questions about the other slides. But I appreciate having the time to come here and talk about this, and we look forward to collaborating with the town for years to come.
Dan, thanks very much. I would have given you a little bit more.
Oh, would you?
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't know
but
what
that's
the kind
okay.
of
But that's
leniency.
okay. I'm sure I'm not supposed to do that.
Right,
So,
okay. Well, I
there you
appreciate
go.
it.
Thank you. I can't just say enough about how much I love the festival and everything the festival does for our community. That all of your slides speak to it, and just so many events that big smile that they're getting. To me, they're getting more complex in many ways. Like the Indigenous Peoples Day is becoming just a very powerful event in our community. And I would lots of credit to the festival for your engagement in something like that. So thank you for your presentation. And Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Dan, for coming and presenting. I echo again what the mayor, she always takes the wind out of our sails, or she says what we want to say ahead of time. It's incredible what the Festival of the Arts does, and I know that it aligns very well with the strategic plan that the Algonquin Theatre has, the 5-year plan. The interesting stat that you said that 80% of people that are local that are coming, they love the Algonquin Theatre. On the flip side, is it not also true that the artists that come here that are performing in the Algonquin Theatre also say that it's one of their favorite venues because it's sort of intimate and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say we and the town and the staff are organized and treat them well, because if you can imagine as a touring artist going, you don't know what you're walking into half the time. And so I think it's a very much really they respect and they love coming here to work, because it always goes off without a hitch. And if there is a hitch, we're pretty quick to be able to figure it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to Councillor Fitzgerald and then to Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, Worship, and thanks, Dan, for your passion and dedication, and you just do great things for the arts in the community, and pass along to the volunteers as well. Thanks.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, through you to Dan, thank you for the report. Yeah, more comments than anything. Again, I love our theater, and I love that you showcase the whole dinner and a theater kind of event that most people do, right? That 59% really kind of brings it home as to, the real reason we kind of kept this theater where we located it and be able to experience that. But I do love that you're branching out. I know we didn't get to that slide, but Yucks at Canvas and, to different areas and showcasing different parts of the town of Huntsville, I think has been a great asset. Not only, yes, I love the theater and that you bring things, but yes, and Deerhurst, but just having those little events too, I think for local people to be able to, just enjoy theater at maybe even a small, more intimate level too, I think is great that you guys have expanded that.
Hey, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, and through you, Dan. Thanks as always. What I look at is the financials, because I hope that you guys are around for the rest of time. But what I love, as a testament to you guys, what I noticed is the stuff that you couldn't control was down this year. Ticket sales, your marketing program was the same, but ticket sales were down, discretionary income is down, and grants were down. But you still pulled off Nuit Blanche under tremendously challenging circumstances. But what I look at, while those things you couldn't control were down, your membership and sponsorships were up, which shows that you guys are working your butts off to make the festival sustainable. So, and I know that you've had to pivot certain ways you do business. So going forward, have you seen any trends that you can use to see what 2025 and 26 are going to bring? Are people going to spend more money? Is it going to be different kinds of acts? What are you seeing for the future of the festival?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So you're right, and look, you analyzed that budget well. That's good. And I do want to say a big thank you to the when Nuit Blanche North we didn't receive some funding through that we traditionally do through the province, and the BIA stepped up to support with more financial support and TD Bank, and we were able to sort of cut and then add. So that's how we did it. But that is one of the trends, is that government funding seems to be, the pools seem to be getting smaller and the demand is getting greater. So it is something I think that all not-for-profit organizations and charities are looking at. Government funding seems to not be as reliable as it was in the past. In terms of ticket sales, it's a funny one. It's a bit of a wild west. Like, I think this year was a bit down, but I'm seeing it increase a little bit. One of the things we can't necessarily depend on, before we used to depend on knowing well ahead that people were buying tickets. Now it's it tends to be even the last 48 hours, suddenly there's a bunch of tickets sold. So, but it depends on the act. So, I mean, the way that we structure our concerts, and it's something I didn't necessarily say in the Algonquin Theatre, and what that agreement that we have helps us do is offer a wide variety of shows and experiences, because the reality is some shows lose money and some shows make money. And we do the shows oftentimes that make money so that we can do the shows that might lose money, but that have a different benefit to the community, whether it's, diverse artists, whether it's emerging artists, whether it's just a different kind of experience that we want to make things more affordable, that sort of thing. So all that to say is we sponsorship and membership has definitely been something that actually has supported us, and we'll keep working towards that. And we're doing a lot of the shows will still try to be the kind of break even kind of situation. So
Thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any other, thank you.
can I
you.
just say
Yeah,
one more thing?
you
Sorry,
may.
is that
You may.
I just wanted to let you guys know, and Helena knows that we've been working
With the artist.
with the artist for Kent Park, and we're hosting a session tonight.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. It's a creative session about the project in Kent Park and helping to choose the animals. I'm going to be bringing my kids, and because we get to choose animals and do he's a fantastic artist, and he's got a great interactive activity that's being done. So that's at the HFA studio at 6:30 tonight, if
Thank you
anybody
for that.
feels like it.
Councillor Renwick mentioned that on Monday night, but thank you for doing that again. And it's an exciting project, no question about it. All right. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, Tim. All right, with that, I'm turning it over to Councillor Schumacher to take over as chair for the beginning of our divisional reports, and starting with community services.
So after Dan's presentation, we do have 7.1 community services, and 7.1.1, I have Jacqueline Surratt and Matt Huddlestone. I think Jacqueline's going to stay in the audience. Apparently, Matt's going to take the lead. There we go. For report number CS 2024-17 Huntsville Festival of the Arts Renewal Agreement. And I have a motion I will read. That it is moved by Councillor Renwick and seconded by Mayor Alcock. It is recommended that the town of Huntsville enter into an agreement renewal with the Huntsville Festival of the Arts to use the Algonquin Theatre effective from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2027, as outlined in report CS 2024-17, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documentation. Matt, you can speak to the report.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody. It's been a moment since I've been at the table. First, I'd like to, on behalf of Director Babineau, Jacqueline, and myself, we would like to thank Dan Watson, the entire board, and the members and volunteers of the Festival of the Arts. As Dan mentioned, it's going to be 20 years next year. We've partnered with the festival, and what they have brought to the town of Huntsville and the local areas is absolutely fantastic. So a big thank you to them. This is the third agreement I've done with the Festival of the Arts. And by far, this has been the easiest to do. And just, I think, again, goes back to the strength of the partnership that we have and the working relationship I have with Dan and the board of directors. So that's been great. Dan touched on the amazing things he's doing. I will kind of go through some of the higher level things on the report. And if you have any questions at the end, absolutely. As I mentioned, the town does have a long-standing relationship with the Festival of the Arts, almost 20 years. A couple key points that I would like to address with everyone is over this time, the fees and charges bylaw has undergone many, many changes. And for some of you who've been at this table for a while, you do know that. One key on the last agreement that that we did not have is we had a resident rate, but we did not have a subsidized rate at that time, which is huge. So when it comes to groups like the Festival of the Arts, or I'll mention Community Living Huntsville, groups like that, we didn't have that subsidized rate in place. So these groups could take advantage of using the theater and making it more accessible. So another key point is those rates, as I've mentioned in the report, are twice the subsidized rate at the theater, and again, historically applied to the youth groups. I am going to mention this again, and Dan did mention it, but they are exactly 48.5% of the rentals of the Algonquin Theater, which is an absolutely huge number for us. One thing Dan didn't mention, I did want to mention, is that we do sell, except for Deerhurst Resort, the theater sells all off-site ticketing for the festival. So whether it's at the church out west at Hillside or it's at Canvas Brewing, we do all the ticketing. Benefit for that is when people are calling our box office or coming in to visiting us or going online, we're a one-stop shop so that we can get tickets for everywhere. Again, except for Deerhurst. As you go through the report, you can see some of the changes in what we've done regards to ticketing fees, rental fees, and a marketing fee. I will address the rental fee right off the bat. As you can see, we've got years 25, 26, and 27, and those are the current subsidized rate. We don't have 27 yet. What we're proposing through an agreement with the festival is that we offer a 10% discount off of our current subsidized rate. And it's a modest discount, but what it does show is the town and the Algonquin Theater's appreciation of the level of business that the Festival of the Arts brings to us. And I guess another key point for me especially that is really important is the festival and our partnership. What they give us, we give back. And giving them that modest discount will again help with the Festival of the Arts doing more kids programming, doing their sponsorships and things like that. So again, for us, it's well worth the slight discount on that rate. We do have, I put an example of the Huntsville agreement with our ticketing. They are going with our existing bylaw. Over the last number of years, it was 65 cents. That is again jumping to $1.25 from that, which again, thank you for the festival and showing us that. One other point that you will notice is the marketing and advertising fee at $75. The past contract was $41.25. It will be going to a flat rate through the following years at $75 for that increase. Our standard rate, as example, in 25 is $123. In addressing that, I'd like to say what the festival brings to us for all of their shows, and thanks to Lisa Spolnick, I should say, and our amazing marketing department, they do a lot of work not only for the festival, but for all of our shows. The festival comes in and has the ability to, as I'm sure a lot of you see when you walk in the main lobby, you will see pull-up banners in front of Partners Hall. You'll see them out at the Canada Summit Center. They do rat cards throughout the year. They do fully advertise their summer schedule and the booklets, which are absolutely phenomenal. That again is all covered by the Festival of the Arts, and that they also supply us with all of the marketing material needed for that we need to sell tickets and garner revenue for the theater, whether it's putting LED images up on the screen or things for the website and social media. So again, going from $41.25 up to $75 is, for us, is a more than reasonable fee, and it is an increase. And they're showing, again, there was support for the theater. I guess, in short, I want to say is through Dan and myself and the ideas that are constantly hatching and developing, whether we're doing an after-school program for the kids that are coming into the theater, which is absolutely huge. We just finished one last week, I believe, wasn't it, Dan? And the kids just, they open the stage door, and none of them walk. They don't walk. They barge into the theater. The door explodes. You best be staying out of their way. And so they introduce this stage. And again, I've said it numerous times at this table, it's about our youth and getting them experienced with the arts, building that confidence, giving them the ability to be free and show who they truly are. And quite frankly, in the future, these are our future ticket holders. These are our future small business owners that will be sponsoring shows and buying memberships and coming to shows at the Algonquin Theater. That's all I have on this. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Renwick?
Thank
question for
you,
Matt?
Chair Schumacher, and thank you for the report, Matt. Excellent report. My question for you, and I do agree wholeheartedly that the Festival of the Arts deserves a 10% discount, but you haven't included any of the numbers. Like, what would that actually look like? What is a 10% discount if they rent for 48% of the time in the theater? What kind of numbers are we talking about from a 10% discount overall?
Yeah, through you, Chair Schumacher. I don't have that exact number on hand, Director Renwick, Councillor Renwick, but I can get that for you.
Any other questions for Matt? No? No? Okay. I look forward to my pen every year that the Huntsville Festival
Absolutely.
does, that they pull out. I love that one. Yeah. And I do want to say one of the favorite, and I believe Mayor Alcock mentioned it in Dan's report, the National Indigenous Peoples Day that we partner with Huntsville Festival of the Arts has just been getting better and better every year. And I don't know if it's Dan's forethought in who he brings, but I tend to go to Mariposa, and whoever we've had here in June ends up like showcasing at Mariposa. It's just been a great, great avenue to see like Ace Nabi and Amanda Reum here playing in our theater or at Rivermill Park. So I really do appreciate that. Mayor Alcock, or did you want to respond to that first? Mayor Alcock first, question?
Not a question, just a comment, and thank you, Chair Schumacher. I should echo really what has already been said. I absolutely support this report, and I just want to say thank you to you and your team, Matt, because it's you work really well with the festival, and I think that speaks volumes. And your interest and love for the theater was reflected in what you said in the report. So, thank you.
Not a problem. Ms.
do you wanna
Surratt has
speak?
joined me, and I'm sure she has an answer.
So thank you for that. Sorry to barge in, but I can, I believe, answer Councillor Renwick's question. So in the past, there's been a fairly complex fee schedule for the Huntsville Festival of the Arts with discounts here, discounts there for all these different things. So because of the new subsidized rate, it really simplifies the agreement. But on top of that, because of the volume, we were looking at a further discount that would basically, as Matt said, support them. We did a lot of math. It's not necessarily perfect because it is kind of a moving target based on the number of sales and stuff, but it should really equal what they've been paying in the past. So it shouldn't result in a negative revenue for us moving forward. It was in the budget proposed, so hopefully that answers your question, or at least it's not numbers specifically, but the discount should really support the festival and what they've been paying in the past and support our budget.
And except for the marketing fee, they're paying the Schedule A for the Algonquin Theater.
Any other last questions or comments? Councillor Morrison?
So, thank you so much. And I had the same question that Councilor Renwick had, so that's great. I think it's deserved because I know the money they do save goes right back in to the community. And of course, those kids, you say they're future ticket buyers, but they also could be future performers right on our stage. And with the amount of funding cutbacks on music programs and whatnot in the schools is huge. If you guys feel comfortable that's not going to affect your budget, then I'm fully in support. But when you say the class, the marketing program, they're going to go up from $41.73 to $75, right?
Correct.
Okay, so there's not getting a discount on that. It's 10% on the rental.
Yeah, the marketing fee is the only adjustment off of the standard Schedule A or bylaw for the Algonquin Theatre.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Last call, and Matt, you have a
One important thing that Dan forgot to mention is tickets go on sale at 10 o'clock today for Jesus Christ Superstar, which always sells out. It's for members only. So if you don't have your membership, it's a great time to grab Dan and buy your tickets. Thank you.
Thanks. And no other questions. I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thanks, guys. And now I get to pass it over to Councillor Fitzgerald to take over the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. All right, I have moved by Monty Cluche, seconded by Dan Armour, whereas bylaw number 2015-52 regulates the use of off-road vehicles, ORVs, restricting access in certain areas in the town of Huntsville. And whereas staff received a deputation from Glenn Gilbert regarding his request for ORV access through the downtown core. Now therefore it is recommended that bylaw number 2015-52 remains status quo. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald, and members of committee. I haven't seen many questions today, so I hope you're not saving them for me. But if you are, I'm ready. Yeah, so this ATV one, it was a good discussion. We met with Mr. Glenn Gilbert on multiple occasions to look at possible alternative routes for ATVs. You know, we were looking at the outside of town, working our way back in and around the main street, and none of them were really appealing to Mr. Gilbert at that time. Basically was set on that route that he had proposed. He did provide some additional signatures in support of that. Also, we did talk to the OPP, we did talk to the MTO, we did talk to the district. And it's hard to approve a route when those agencies are denying you to go on those roads. So district, when they did do their bylaw for ATVs, nothing's changed within their road network. So they said we still can't support it because nothing's changed from the last time that we've done this. The bridge that goes over the highway is still owned by the MTO, and the MTO says it cannot allow an ATV on it. From a municipal side of things, so as per the Highway Traffic Act, they're to drive on the shoulder. If there is no shoulder, then they're to drive towards the right side of the road. As far as speed limits, if it's 50 kilometers an hour or less posted, they have to drive 25 kilometers an hour. If it's posted over 50, they can only drive 50. So in the urban area, there's no shoulders for them to drive on. They'd have to drive closer to the curb, but only driving half the speed of what the vehicles could drive. So that would provide more of a congested area. We did reach out to other municipalities, Lake of Bays, Georgian Bay, Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, and the ones that are basically a township has allowed them to go through. Townships are made up of more rural roads versus a municipality that is made up of more urban roads. So with all of that, again, multiple meetings, we went through all this. There is some statistics in your report that we did receive from the OPP. I hope you've all read them. They're very interesting. The Northeast region is also leading in fatalities, anywhere between the ages of 55 to 64. So there's some pretty good information in there. So with all of that, staff felt that it was appropriate to leave the bylaw as status quo for the time being. Thank you.
Thanks for the report, Brandon. And what a wealth of information in the OPP report that was included in that. So, are there any questions, Deputy Mayor Armour?
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. Just a quick one. Actually, you may have answered my question for me, I think, when you talked about the MTO bridge. A couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with the Park to Park group from Parry Sound. And, you know, they're trying to make that connection through our community to to basically Dwight Lake of Bays area. So I was going to ask you to look into coming across the bridge at the south end of Huntsville, Muskoka 3, coming through town line and coming down to Brunel Road and connecting through, because right now you can get down to the bottom of Clark's Hill and that's the end of it, but you just go around the corner, you'd be on town line. So I was going to ask that question if you could look, but obviously the MTO won't let you cross the bridge.
Yeah, through you, Chair Fitzgerald. So that is correct. Those three bridges that lead into Huntsville, we cannot take ATVs over them. Through the Highway Traffic Act, there's also a list of highways that you can drive ATVs on that are owned by the ministry, but not crossing those overpasses.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Brandon, for the report. It was interesting reading through it, and I appreciate the work that Mr. Gilbert did with his petition. But I agree with the comments that you made. I mean, it's pretty hard to approve this when the OPP and districts say, you know, that aren't in favor of it. So that's where I would sit on it.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brandon. I have another motion moved by Scott Morrison, seconded by Helena Renwick. Whereas committee approved the Unity Square project concept and location and directed staff to work with Councillors Morrison and Renwick, Muskoka Pride, Hope Arises Project Inc., and the Huntsville Royal Canadian Legion on a design concept. And whereas a conceptual design for the Unity Circle has been developed, now therefore it is recommended that the committee approve the installation of the Unity Circle design, and further that staff be directed to accept donations for the Unity Circle project, and any costs associated with the installation be funded through community donations.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Again, this was another great project to be a part of. A lot of wealth and knowledge I've gained through this, and it's been very exciting. So happy to speak on this today. So as per the direction, we did meet with Councillor Renwick and Morrison and the other organizations such as Hope Arises and Muskoka Pride and our own Huntsville Royal Canadian Legion. Met on multiple occasions and looking at what they best stand for and represent and what they would like to see as part of this project. And as you'll see in your design concept, there's 4 sections to that design that they have kind of put their artistic abilities to task and provided to us, and we've done our own as well. And the collaboration through this has just been absolutely great. I can personally say for myself that I have absolutely learned so much through this, and what I felt that they actually stand for is they stand for so much more than what I thought. And so very proud to be a part of this. And you know, we went from a Unity Square, and the description in your report turns it to a Unity Circle. We felt that was more appropriate to represent all of this as a whole. You know, what I get out of this project is this tells me this Huntsville's strong and Huntsville's united through all of this. The location is great for this. In your design, you'll see 4 pieces of a pie, if you will, but there will be a crosswalk through that. We felt that was more safe for the public as they walk from point A to point B, knowing that there's that crosswalk there. They have something to walk on without walking on the piece of a pie from that organization, which is also important to them, and it gives you a safe passage as you do look through it. There will be one, and I will beat Councillor Schumacher to the question, but there will be one minor change to this design concept, so it is a little bit to be tweaked. But and the 4th section, the community section, will outline something for people with disabilities. So we will be adding that in there. And we look forward to getting this done. A great project, and there is no cost to the tax levy for this project. Should this be approved today, you know, donations and fundraising will begin to happen through Councillor Morrison and Councillor Renwick. So with that, again, I've just been very proud to be a part of this. It's been a great project. I've learned a lot, And if I can learn a lot, it's already starting to do its job. So believe me, I'm probably the hardest to learn. But with that, through you, Your Worship, if I may, I would like to ask Councillor Renwick or Morrison to say a few words, should they wish. Or sorry, Councillor or Chair Fitzgerald. I forgot you were here. I'm sorry.
Still here. Thanks, Brandon. And would either of you or both of you like to comment? And then we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald, and thank you, Brandon, for the report. And I would echo what you've said. It has been a great project, and it's the pleasure working with yourself and with Jacqueline and with Councillor Morrison here. The other great thing about this project is that when we actually do come to the point of putting it on and actually painting it, there's a really great opportunity to invite young children or young kids to come and help us as well, and other artists in the community. So it's really going to become an entire community-led initiative, and it's been great working with the different groups. So, and Councillor Morrison, I'm sure will have other things to add to this as well.
Thanks for that, Councillor Renwick. Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, I think Brandon nailed all the important points, so I don't have to say too much. But what I want to echo is what you said. Working with Brandon and Jacqueline on this has been amazing. It's been so much fun. It's taken us a while to get this back, but the reason being that at every step we want to get it right. We want to make sure that the user groups had their input and that the design was based around their needs, not just us saying, hey, let's do this. But Brandon's knowledge around what was allowed and what wasn't allowed was pivotal. But the most exciting part for me, I do know if people are watching at home, when we first brought this forward, Councillor Renwick's initial plan, we thought it might cost us $80,000 for a crosswalk. Now we're going to be about a tenth of that for a unity circle, and then it's not going to hit the levy at all. I think it's, and to Brandon's point about the disabilities, we did have various discussions about it, but we weren't sure exactly how to put that into that pie. So we would be looking to people like Councillor Schumacher and her accessibility committee to see how we can make sure that that represents that group. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to get it going, and I want to thank our team for letting us have so much fun with it. It's been great. And a thank you to Joyce Crone, Betty and Bruce and the gang at the Legion, and of course Sean Forth at Pride Muskoka for giving us their input. It's been great.
Thank you both for your comments, and I will go to questions. Your Worship first, and then Councillor Cloutier, and I think I saw any other hands, and then Deputy Mayor.
More of a comment. I want to echo a lot of what has just been said. Brandon, I really, really enjoyed not just your report, but your presentation of the report and all of the things that you said as to your own growth through this. That's amazing. And the support from everyone on staff. Jacqueline, I think this was, a complicated project. And so when I looked at it, I loved the circle idea. And as you say, this is what happens when you do consultation, and it morphs. So that was really cool. And I do love the additional community section. And look forward to, I guess it will go to Accessibility Committee. It hasn't yet. So I just think kudos to everybody. I think this is exciting. And from a cost perspective, the fact that it's not on the levy is really important. I think the motion says go forth to the next stage in the costing, and the costing of it will come back. Will that include ongoing maintenance, that sort of thing? I don't think maintenance is the right word, but you know what I mean, and I should be looking at Chair Fitzgerald.
I think, Councillor Morrison, you'd like to answer that question?
Yeah, so I would say to that end, we're hoping that we raise enough funds that there's a bit of a reserve to deal with that. And as long as Councillor Renwick and I are around, I think whether we're on council or not, we would still want to be involved with this initiative. So I think we are committed to making sure that hopefully it never affects the taxpayer. And we're doing it with stencils so that if something does get messed up or needs some touching up, we can put the stencil down, we can touch it up, as opposed to having to redo the whole thing all the time. So that's our hope. And we do feel confident that there's going to be enough funds raised that we should have some reserves.
Oh, follow up?
A very quick follow-up. Thank you for that. And I love the idea of the stencils, and I love the idea of the involvement of other people in the community. I absolutely support this project. I'm very excited.
Okay, then it was Councillor Cloutier, Deputy Mayor Armour, Councillor Stone, and then Councillor
Through you,
Clark.
Chair. Exactly where is this going?
You want to go ahead? It's going right at the intersection, coming down King Street, the pedestrian walkway, and then you'll be walking across to the parking lot or off to the right to Rivermill Park. So that on Darragh Howell Way, that little intersection is kind of, Brandon's had to get creative because it's not a perfect intersection as far as how the roads meet, but it's going to be right there. It's going to be a circle there with a crosswalk going from the Wolf Company building side right over to the pergola on an angle.
I'd like to see, if we're doing this, a place where it's not being driven on. If we could find a place where we could put this, that we're not driving on it, we're not plowing snow over it. It's just my thoughts, that's all.
Brandon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald, now that you're here. So I do want to point out, Councillor Cloutier, that the location was already previously approved through General Committee, the motions in your report. Totally understand where you're coming from. What we are looking to do is use part of a durable paint, same type of road marking paint that we have, which will fight against those type of weathers and plowing and stuff like that. So it should stand up, and most likely, I mean, it's going to have to be done once a year, maybe twice a year to be touched up. You know, there's always the risk of vandalism. You read it in the news now. Huntsville's got a big issue with vandalism. Do I anticipate that to happen? I sure hope not, but we are prepared, and we'll take that accordingly and deal with it as it happens.
Thanks, Brandon, for that. Deputy Mayor Armour, I believe you're next, and then Councillor Stone, and then
Thanks.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Just a very quick one, actually. Monty asked part. I knew we were going down at the Rivermill Park. I'm just wondering, how big is it going to be? That's the size of it. Is it 20 feet wide, 30 feet wide? So, or is it just something in the middle?
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald. So yeah, it's just going to fit in the middle of the intersection. So it's not really going to touch the curbs as you come around, but it'll be a little bit more fit into there. So a little bit smaller than the actual intersection that's there.
Oh, so the sidewalk won't actually go across it. You'll be walking around the outsides of it?
No, sorry, through you, Chair Fitzgerald. So what you see in your
Brandon, would it help if we put it up on the screen, like just the location, or would not? Would
sure, if you want. Yeah.
It's just it's on this screen here. So sorry about that, Chair.
It's out of control here. In the meantime, Councillor Stone's question was answered, so we'll move along to Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. So I didn't support this initiative when it came to council last time. I had concerns about vandalism occurring and the time that our staff's going to have to spend on that. I think there will be considerable amount of time that our staff's going to have to spend dealing with that. The other concern I had was that, and although Councillor Morrison has sort of addressed it, at some point when the Unity Circle needs to replace, there could be a cost, or there may be a cost that has to be taken on by the town. So I still have those concerns, and so I won't be supporting this. We already have a major issue, as Brandon's mentioned, with vandalism in the town of Huntsville and this specific area in general. And I'm concerned that this is going to add to our vandalism issues down at Rivermill Park.
Any further questions? Oh, I think we'll let the CAO have a word here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I think the important thing to note is this is something that if we put in, if council agrees to proceed, and if we find there are issues or if we find there are huge maintenance costs, then we don't have to continue with it. So as noted recently through media and approved by council, we are looking at putting additional cameras. So we're working with the OPP in that area. So we feel very confident that if anything does happen, that we'll at least have that avenue to follow up with. But keeping in mind with respect to cost about further repairs and replacement, at any given time, council can decide that we will no longer have that in that location. So there is some flexibility with that.
Thank you for that. And I'll go to Councillor Morrison and then to Councillor Renwick and then to Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, and I appreciate Councillor Clark's comments because it's realistic, right? There could be a point at some point where it does impact the taxpayer. But we're trying to set this up so it doesn't. And currently, the current initiative will not cost the taxpayer anything, but the upside is huge. The BIA, HMATA, the Chamber, these guys all want this. Local businesses want this. Locals want this. So I think the fact that there's so much upside and there's maybe a potential small downside down the road is not any reason to not move forward with it. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Renwick.
Just Councillor Morrison covered what I was going to say. I would never think that we wouldn't do something because of a few bad apples. This is something that is very important to our community, and it's been shown that it's important to our community. So I would never think that because it may be vandalized that we wouldn't do it. So I respect what you're saying, Councillor Clark, but I'd have to disagree with what you're saying.
You know, sometimes I feel sorry for the apples out there. They always get a bad rap. Councillor Schumacher.
Thanks. Yes, and I had asked my question of Councillors Morrison, Renwick, and Brandon prior to, so they knew this was coming, because I have had some members of the Accessibility Committee reach out and sort of, since it is inclusion, where is the disability movement within this? So I appreciate, hopefully is January okay for you guys to come to that meeting if this, yeah.
Brandon.
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald, absolutely.
All right. Deputy Mayor Armour. Last word.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. There's a lot of colors here. When I counted, there's like 15 different colors. And we just had a report recently about the colors in our own logo. So can you get all these colors and road paint? Like, that's going to survive? It's just seems to be a lot of colors. Be a lot of cost just in colors.
Is that a question you can answer?
That's through you, Councillor Fitzgerald. I have seen many different types of artistic work on asphalts. I have talked to a few line painters, and they do have multiple colors like that. So we have reached out to them to see what's available. Again, that'll be all part of the implementation process and seeking those donations and helping with that. So again, I think that's where it's going to sit with us, and we've got our work cut out for us to get all this in place. But in my own opinion, I think we can achieve that.
Thanks, Brandon. Councillor Cloutier.
To you, Chair. Just a quick question. Was our marketing department contacted through any of this for the like Councillor said about the colors or the advantages of this? You know what I mean? Like, how are they? Is this going to be something that we can market and benefit from? Like, I know it's going to be there, it's going to be out there and everything, but were they consulted at all on this?
Brandon.
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald. I personally have not consulted with the marketing department on this, no.
Okay, this is getting a little longer than I anticipated. And Councillor Morrison, last question.
Well, just an answer to Councillor Cloutier. So because there isn't a marketing component of it yet, we haven't approached them. I think the marketing of this will be more on how Instagrammable it is, and the fact that the people coming here it'll be going viral around because they'll be posting what their experience is. So I don't necessarily think we need to tax the marketing department with much on this. It'll be pushed out organically, I believe.
Okay, everyone's really trying to exhaust this. I'm going to go to the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So hopefully just to bring some closure to the discussion regarding marketing, the reason we were before you with respect to the branding materials, because we use it for duplication. So it's replication, it's printing. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Schumacher. So this particular project, to Councillor Morrison's point, might be, we might be posting it on social media, but it wouldn't be our intent to take it and reproduce it on blankets or shirts, so that's why we had to deal with the colors in the logo. So I don't think this would apply in this case.
Brandon.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I would just like to answer Deputy Mayor Armour's comment about the crosswalk. It will be from the sidewalk on the old King Street to the pergola. So it will actually run through the middle of this. So there'll be two pieces of pie on one side. So it'll be more on an angle like that coming through here.
All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone. I have a motion moved by Bob Stone, seconded by Nancy Alcock, whereas directed by council, staff completed the public 2-week consultation phase of the VORR and submitted the formal application for a vessel operation restriction regulation, VORR, on Clark Lake. And whereas Transport Canada has advised an environmental assessment is required to further the VORR application. Now, therefore, it is recommended that committee direct staff to advise the residents of Clark Lake the town will not be completing an environmental assessment and considers this matter complete. Colleen.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. So it has been a little bit of time since this topic was at the table. So what I wanted to do to refresh everyone's memory on the topic and all the details, I included the link for the My Huntsville page. So that page is a collaboration of our marketing team and information from myself in reaching out to the public to get feedback on any given topic. So it's really an invaluable tool for us. All the information is right there on one page, including links to previous staff reports, etc. So this conversation has been going on for a while, and we were waiting on the reply from Transport Canada with the result of our application. So that was part of the piece that took a bit of time. And so I attempted in several different ways to summarize what Nicole McMillan had replied to us with, but I didn't want to miss any of the intricate details. So I simply quoted her directly so that all of the information was translated perfectly and I didn't misinterpret anything. So basically they're not approving the application, they're asking for more information in the form of environmental assessment to prove to them that potentially the use of gasoline-powered engines and higher speeds on Clark Lake would have a negative impact in the future. So what we've recommended here is that we would have to procure for that type of service and spell out the exact nature of the information. It would require significant more staff time, et cetera, not just from myself, but potentially from our corporate information folks. And so the work going into do the public consultation for such a kind of a localized issue, we did get really, really valuable feedback from the area residents, and we did have a public meeting, and it was again for the localized issue, I would say very well attended, and we heard from everyone. So that was all considered and put into the application. So I feel like we've done our due diligence in seeking the public input as well as presenting it rationally and fairly, and Nicole McMillan gave us that pretty thorough response. So at this point, the recommendation is that we not move forward with procuring for environmental assessment.
Thanks for that, Colleen. And I will go to questions. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Colleen, for the report. So I just need a little bit of clarification. So if we're not doing the assessment, are we still going to continue to move forward with the VORR application or not?
No, and depending on the results of this meeting, I'm not sure if a formal, if we have to actually withdraw the application or whether we can just inform them that we're not moving forward.
Just a quick follow-up.
Follow-up, yes.
I'm just wondering, I'm assuming the residents have been made all aware of this possibility. I'm just wondering how they took that news, because I know there was a lot of people involved with getting it to the point that it is.
So again, they knew the topic was coming to the table today for committee to give some direction. And I've only been really dealing with the one or two representatives that have brought the issue forward. So because we don't have any official capacity to contact them all, we'd be relying on them to have that discussion amongst themselves.
Your worship.
Thank you very much, Chair Fitzgerald. It's a bit of a follow-up to Councillor Clark's comment. I support the report. I was curious, though. At one point, I believe through one of the representatives, there was some suggestion that the lake owners, or they're not an association, were thinking of raising the money to pay for the environmental assessment, and that it would have to go through the town in order to carry it out. Was there any discussion around that?
Through you, Chair. So there was some discussion of the group coming up with a future proposal of how to achieve. I wasn't sure on all of the details, to be honest, 100%. But they didn't have anything to move forward with at this time.
Follow up.
So, in a way, if we go forward and support your report, if in 6 months' time they somehow miraculously come up with $8,000 to support the environmental assessment, it probably wouldn't be too late to carry it out at that time, would it? Or does this completely close the file and we'd have to start over again?
Through you, Chair Fitzgerald, I could certainly make a note to our representative at Transport Canada to just say, instead of using the word withdraw, maybe pausing, if that's the wish of council.
I think, from my perspective, knowing that at one point they thought they might be able to raise the funds because they saw that probably the town wasn't moving forward with that, but a lot of work has gone into the application, and certainly in coordination with us. If we could do that, I would support the pause as opposed to the withdrawal.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments, questions? So, are you proposing a motion, Your Worship?
I would propose to amend, just to replace the word. So is there, this matter be paused? I think that our clerk has been typing something, so perhaps we can.
And I believe Councillor Clark would second that motion once we have it finalized. Clerk Clay?
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I'm just wondering if council would like to, instead of putting the word pause in there, to postpone the report itself, to just say until staff have contacted and seen if the group is able to obtain funding.
A different direction.
Go ahead.
May I comment? I appreciate that, but I think it's a bit more directive. I think if we say pause, then at such point as the group comes forward and says, we have raised the money or whatever, what you're proposing is a bit more directive, and then it's still sort of bringing down the hammer in a funny way. That's my interpretation of that. So I prefer the pause. It's a bit more passive. Is that difficult?
Whatever committee would like.
Okay, comments, just my comment.
Why would Deputy Mayor Armour and then
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Schumacher?
Just a quick one, because I think it says right now, staff be directed to not undertake an environmental assessment to further pursue the VORR. So we should be changing that to saying that we take a pause. And do we need to put direction in there to see if the Clerk Lake Association will raise the funds?
Okay, I'll go to Your Worship to have the conversation with the
Sorry,
Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Schumacher. So the CAO just had some suggested wording, and so So staff, what was your wording? Sorry, it was good. I think
If I
that
may,
it does
Mr.
the same.
Chairman.
Madam CAO, could you enlighten us, please?
So I would like to propose that it be amended to say completing an environmental assessment and no further action will be taken by the town at this time. So then it does technically pause it. And then it's not closing the application. It's just saying that we will not be proceeding with an environmental assessment at this time. So just a recommended.
Is this a time-sensitive thing with the ministry?
Councillor Fitzgerald, Chair Fitzgerald, I don't know that. It does take years to pursue. So I can, but again, the suggested wording by CAO Corey is definitive enough, as well as doesn't totally close the door.
I will call on Councillor Schumacher.
All I was gonna say is take out the must matter complete and add until for pretty much what the CAO said. I'm doing her job for her both times now.
I'm gonna need it much bigger than that. Okay. Moved by Nancy Alcock, seconded by Corey Clark, whereas directed by council, staff completed the public two-week consultation phase of the VORR submitted to formal application for a vessel operation restriction regulation VORR on Clark Lake. And whereas Transport Canada has advised an environmental assessment is required to further the VORR application. Now, therefore, it is recommended that committee direct staff to advise the residents of Clark Lake that the town will not be completing an environmental assessment and no further action will be taken by the town at this time. Okay. Motion as amended. Well, I'll go. Any questions or comments? Clerk Clam.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. Sorry, the amendment you're doing.
Yeah, I'm calling.
Sorry, I thought you said the motion as amended. Okay. Thank you.
All in favor? Carried. The main motion. All in favor? Unanimous. Look at that. Thank you, everyone. And Councillor Schumacher, I apologize. Councillor Morrison, I'll now pass the chair over to you.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. You got a couple of fun ones. I'm going to propose that we do a quick 5-minute bio break before we get into corporate services. Welcome back, everybody. We're moving into the corporate services portion of general committee. And we're going to start off with Julie McKenzie and Suzanne Diller presenting 7.3.1 regarding report number Corp 2024-59, which is the 2024 Q3 forecast. And I do have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Renwick. It is recommended that committee approve the 2024 Q3 budget deviations that have not yet been previously approved by motion, as outlined in Appendix B of Report Corp 2024-59. And further, that committee approve terminating the Streetscape Reserve account and transferring the remaining balance to the Roads Capital Reserve account in 2024. And with that, I'll bring up Suzanne to present this.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Morrison. I'm here today to present the third quarter updated year-end forecast. Staff have gone through their budgets and have forecasted an overall surplus of $289,000 for 2024. A majority of the surplus is due to updated interest revenue earned. The report also includes highlights and comments from the divisions. The budget and financial reporting policy requires that any deviations be approved by council, either plus or minus 25,000. Staff will report back on the 2024 financial results in early 2025. I'd like to outline the information that has been included in the appendices. So Appendix 1 includes the consolidated summary by division and department and includes the thumbs up to thumbs down, indicating a positive or negative impact. Appendix B includes the deviations, which is expected and normal to see throughout the year. Appendix C, this one includes a detailed forecast by division and department. Appendix D includes the forecasted reserve balances for 2024. So there's a motion included in the report to request that the Streetscape Reserve account be terminated. The final project reconciliation has been completed now, so the motion includes direction to transfer the remaining balance in the Streetscape Reserve to the Roads Capital Reserve. A little history: the funds are recommended to go back to the Roads Capital Reserve, which is where the funds originally came from. In the years leading up to the Streetscape project, roads projects were reduced each year to allow for the funding of this multi-year project. Appendix E is a listing of the capital projects. There were only a few minor changes since this was last reported in November, and those changes were verbally mentioned during the presentation. Staff will continue to review and monitor spending to maintain within budgets where possible and ensure that we are coming in at budget at year end. And I'm available for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne. Any questions on the report? Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Morrison, and thank you, Suzanne, for the report. I think what I'd like to refer to is the recommendation for the allocation of the streetscape surplus. And from my perspective, that warrants more discussion as to where we'd like to redirect that. And so I would propose that we remove that recommendation at this time, and so that council can consider other options, what we might want to do with it at perhaps their meeting in January. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what I would consider.
Any comments on that, Suzanne?
I'm okay with that. We could bring it back with the year-end report, perhaps.
And that would be in
When is that? Would that be in January or February?
I believe
that's later than January, right?
Yes, it is. So we can do it in January too.
I think it would be my preference that it would be sooner, depending on the options that council would like to consider.
Okay.
We might land right back at this, but we might have a couple of other options. So I think my thinking would be the sooner the better. If that works for, that does. Okay, good.
And on that, could we conceivably put it into the Roads Capital Reserve because it has to go somewhere if we close out that account? Especially considering the report we just got last week about the roads needs study, and we should be spending $8 million and we're spending $4 million. I think it maybe should go there now as per the report, and then we could, if we decide later to pull the money from that reserve to something else, maybe that makes sense. It came from roads reserve, so I'd kind of like to see it go back there for now, just my opinion.
May I comment on, again, that's part of the discussion that I would think, rather than get into the discussion as to what the possibilities might be, like perhaps putting it into another reserve, right? So, at this point, I'm not sure that I was prepared to speak to all of those other options. So I would like the time to be able to consider that in January. And do you think, Suzanne, it would be all right to hold off from closing it for a month? Would that?
I'm sorry, if you can defer it to the treasurer, would be
Director
fantastic.
McKenzie?
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know if Denise was going to answer for me or not. I was just going to recommend we could still move forward with closing the reserve, but moving it over to working funds instead of that. And then that fund is a reserve that's not allocated for any specific purpose. And then we can close that one, and then the money's still sitting there.
That sounds fine to me, if I may follow up. That sounds fine to me as long as we can figure out in January and extract it from working funds. Okay, perfect.
That sounds
Thank
like a
you.
perfect plan.
Thank you.
Sounds good. And Suzanne, you have direction on that. I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor and Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Chair Morrison. I just didn't know if you needed a seconder for that because I too have some different options that we could use that money for. So look forward to the discussion.
So if we do change that up, Mayor Alcock and Deputy Mayor Emmer will move and second that. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Chair Morrison. My question is about operating financial services on Appendix B. $100,000 increase in liability insurance deductible. Did that double?
Director
my
McKenzie, want to
understanding?
tackle that?
So can you just repeat the question?
It was General Committee Operating Insurance Financial Services, $100,000 increase in liability insurance deductible.
Oh.
So, can you enlighten me there, or is there more information available?
Certainly. So we have had quite a few more claims in during kind of the pandemic years. Our claims are actually pretty low, the frequency of them, but they've certainly returned back. So we have increased the budget in the 2025 year as well to increase those deductibles.
So that's an increase. So
It's the
our
frequency.
deductible amount has not changed, I guess is my question.
No, the deductible amount has not changed.
Okay.
It is the frequency of claims that we're experiencing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director McKenzie. I believe there's another hand up. Was it Councillor Cluche? No? Any other questions on the report? Great. With seeing no more hands, I'll call the questions. Oh, sorry. Oh, we might have to amend. Yeah. So we're working on some wording that Mayor Alcock and Deputy Mayor Armour will put forward, and we're going to put it on the screen, I believe. Okay. All right. So the amendment to the motion will be that we're going to strike the word roads capital and put in the word working funds. So this money would go into a working funds reserve, which sounds like it's way more flexible. And then we can have discussions down the road about the funds. Any comments or questions about the proposed amendment to the motion? Okay, well, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? And then on the main motion as amended, any comments or questions? All those in favor? Okay, and that passes. Okay, thank you very much, Suzanne. And that carries, of course. And we're going to move on to Director Frame with 7.3.2 regarding report number Corp 2024-66, 2024 Outstanding Council Directives, updates number 4. And I do have a motion on that, moved by Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Clark. It is recommended that committee approve the removal of the council and committee directives outlined in Appendix A of Report Corp 2024-66, and further that resolution number GC 142-23 be rescinded. And with that, I'll pass over to Director Frame.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. So this report provides an update on the progress of the outstanding council directives. I did wanted to note that the only item that is recommended for removal in this report is the Cora Street Brunel crosswalk. So just a little bit of background on that. The directive required staff to report back to General Committee once the district performed an evaluation of whether an unsupervised crosswalk was warranted at that location. So the district has identified that a signalized crosswalk is warranted at that location. So it's now actually become a district project. So as a result, any reporting on this will be done through the district. I also wanted to point out that since the last update, which was brought forward in September of 2024, 17 directives have been entirely completed, and an additional 9 directives have been added to the list. At the end of 2023, there were 109 directives on the list, and 57 of those carried forward at the beginning of 2024. There are currently 106 directives on the list, and based on the status and progress notes that are provided in the staff report, it is anticipated that approximately 39 of these will carry forward into 2025. So I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much for a thorough report. Any questions on the director's report from council? Sounds like you stumped them. So, well, I will call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you, Director Frame. And our third and final corporate services item is 7.3.3, where CAO Corey will discuss the report number CAO 2024-7, Lakeland Holding Limited 2024 third quarter shareholder update, and this is for information only.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So nothing to add. This is our standard report, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions on the shareholder report from Lakeland? Okay, well, with that, I am now able to pass the chair back to Mayor Alcock to take over.
Thank you very much, Chair Morrison. So we're moving to new business, and we do have one item under new business. And before I called Trevor to come up and speak to this, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Armour and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald, whereas in response to the climate emergency declaration by Council in 2021, General Committee was presented with the corporate GHG inventory and regional climate change mitigation plan developed by Tatum Engineering with input and feedback from Muskoka area municipalities. Now, therefore, it is recommended that Council receive the plan as presented by Tatum Engineering on December 11, 2024, and further that staff will review the plan and come back to Council with a report with recommendations and possible next steps. Trevor, are you planning to speak to it, or are you here for? Yes, you are. No, okay. Maybe what I'll do is ask. All right, committee. Are there questions with respect to this motion? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I just have a couple of comments. So I call things as I see them. And I would say that this plan is very ambitious and somewhat, if not very, unrealistic. For example, converting our heavy truck equipment to EVs makes no sense to me when we're dealing with cold climates, weather conditions. I don't think that's realistic or practical to consider that. The last thing we need to worry about is snow plows and fire equipment that aren't operational. So I hope that when the report comes back to council that it will have not only realistic goals, but achievable goals.
Appreciate those comments for sure. And I think that's the intent of the motion, is to take it and say, well, clearly I would think that Trevor's not going to come back and with an expense of 8 or to 12 million over the next 4 years, frankly, or 5 years. But maybe that's different. So, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Alcock. And through you, yeah, I'm kind of with Councillor Clark on this one. I think we're on a bit of a collision course, to bring up the elephant in the room. We have a very sincere and genuine desire to meet our GHG goals. We have a sincere goal of being net zero, but it's on a collision course with another train, that's the budget realities. And short of getting it 80% funded by grants, it's going to be a real challenge to meet any of these goals. So I'm looking forward to the report coming back with Trevor's good work that he will do. But I'm anticipating it's going to be a real challenge for us to meet these goals. But
I think that message is getting across loud and clear, that it needs to be realistic. And, you know, whether it's finding a particular project with a well-funded grant or, you know, that kind of thing. And I would think one thing, and I'm not going to speak for Trevor, but he's well aware of the available funding that's out there. So that, I'm sure, is being heard loudly and clearly. I would echo both of those comments. Other comments? No. Okay, I can see. All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thanks, Trevor, for being here. Look at that. Huh. I have a motion moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Cluche. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 11:12 a.m. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, everybody.